All right, welcome back, everybody. Well, there we go. I have a feeling sometimes with the breakout rooms, people, when they go to leave the breakout room, I think leave the WebEx classroom altogether and have to come back in. But yeah, it looks like we're all here. All right, so hopefully, I bopped back and forth a little bit between the two rooms, and it's the same thing every time I get to this point in this course. What I love hearing, and I heard it over and over again with this, was somebody saying some version of, "Oh yeah, I didn't think of that," or "Oh, yeah, we hadn't thought of that thing yet." So that was sort of exactly what this was supposed to be about, was to have those moments of, before you get too far sort of focused into one path, just to make sure that those ideas have been run by a couple of different people, and to get that kind of feedback. And hopefully, you can take that information back to your group or back to yourself, and just have be able to fold that into the planning and the design and the development of the game, as you start to see this. We will have, this is what I call alpha testing, where we're basically just going through the basic idea of the game, the framework of the game. There will be a chance, probably again that week after we come back from our week off, our spring break week, where you will beta test the game. So that in that case, you'll have a chance to actually run the game through some gameplay. But I would encourage all of the groups, whenever you think you're at a point where that's meaningful, if you can have people actually try the game out. That's usually the best way to find out the little corners and the holes and the things you didn't think about. So if you have some people that you can test the game with as it's being developed, that's a great thing to do as well. Particularly if they're people who don't know the game at all. Like, that's usually the best group. Obviously within your group you can play the game, but having people who don't know the game, that's where you're going to get those questions of, well, what am I supposed to do now? Or, what does the rule say about this? So that idea of incorporating as much feedback into the development process as you can, so that you don't get the whole game finished and then discover that there was some loophole that you didn't think of. And I heard that word pop up a couple of times in the groups tonight, of people saying, "Oh yeah, there's a little loophole there that students could actually get through this game not having actually done anything," or whatever. So that's the kind of thing that I wanted to make sure we were catching through this activity. So let me just kind of wrap up a couple of things officially for the night. And then I'll find out if either group 2 or group 3 wants to stay on and get some time to discuss what they learned from the alpha testing. But before we do that, let me just bring back up this. So that I can just sort of talk about the work this week. So, like I said, really a lot of the work from here on out is really going to start just focusing on working in your groups, getting the rules of the game built, getting the materials for the game built, whether that's, stuff in Scratch or in other platforms, or physical objects, or whatever you're creating. So, based off of what you heard tonight and what you learned tonight, over the course of the next week, whatever you can do with your group in terms of sharing this information. I know that some groups may be making use of a Google Doc or something as a way to collaborate. Just make sure that as you're completing items that are part of the instructional design in the wiki, that you're getting the information put in there as well. You can certainly use the wiki as your primary place, but if your group is using some other platform to communicate and to develop answers to the design plan, just make sure that information is going into the wiki as well. So over the next week, any adjustments now that you've gotten or that have been triggered by what you learned from the discussions tonight, if that means you've got to take a step back and make some changes to some of the design answers you may have already put in the wiki, just go in and update that information. But at this point, your group should have enough information and a clear enough idea of what's going on to actually start building the game. And remember, the game itself is the set of rules. The system of rules is the game. So that's obviously where a big part of the focus is going to be. You will be needing that flow chart for your game. And the rules and the flow chart can go hand in hand. They're a great way. The one reinforces the other and cross checks and back and forth. So if you want to start building both of those things at the same time, typically in a game, you've got the three main chunks of the game: setting up the game, playing the game, and then how does the game end, or what happens at the end of the game. So in the wiki, in the develop section of the wiki page, there will now be some questions that'll start guiding your work in terms of those things: the rules, the flow chart, things like that. So that should be where your group hopefully is starting to head now with their discussion. So and any of the, I'm calling them still physical items, but any of the things that you need for the game, whether that's actually a digital item like a scratch thing, or anything else. If you don't have to build them yet, but there is a place in the wiki for you to start listing out sort of what are all the things that are needed, and that should include digital items as well as physical items. Um, and that'll also allow your group to start to have a discussion, if you haven't already, about kind of who's going to be responsible for which pieces of that. I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, if you have somebody in your group who's a strong programmer or really enjoys doing the scratch work, then maybe they can take on that part of the game. Somebody else maybe can do the flow chart piece of it. Or if you all want to collaborate on everything, that is totally fine as well. So really, this marks a shift from the planning phase of the game into the actual development phase of the game, and that should be work over this week. As I said, next week, because we aren't meeting together, you can use that time if your group wants to set up a Zoom meeting with each other or something during this class time. Certainly, feel free to do that. I won't have anything that has to be done in real time next week. There will be another piece of the gamification project that I'll post next week, but you can absolutely use this time if your group wants to, or use a different time. It doesn't really matter, but start having those discussions happening. So then the only really other thing for this week is just the gamification project. And as I showed you before, there is the forum. Start throwing out your initial ideas about what activity you're going to think about gamifying and how you might gamify it. And then bounce those ideas off of each other, provide some feedback if you think of things that you might suggest for other people as they start to develop those gamification projects. And then next week, I'll have the instructional design piece of that available, so you can start developing that activity. So that is really the overview for the coming 2 weeks, really. So again, the focus is on starting to actually build out the games. No meeting next week. And what else? There was one other. Oh, I know. I for those of you who are in the 5:30 class, you'll have already heard this in one form or another, but it did become apparent to me, and some people commented to me, and I was starting to notice on my own, when they rolled over the Moodles to the new Moodle server. In the past, whenever they've set up a new class for me, they pull up my previous version of the class and they create it as a new shell. All of the internal links all still function. So when I get a new version of the class, I just have to go in and update stuff and all that. But all the links that I build into a lesson that point to other things in the lesson or in the Moodle, they all update. For some reason, when they moved to the new server, that didn't happen. So all of the internal links on previous weeks of the class will now, if you click on them, they take you to just that main overview Moodle page, because it doesn't know where the information is anymore. So I've tried to go back, and I think I did last week should be good, and I think I did the week before. So week 6 and 7, I went in and I updated all the links so that they all work. But if you're going back to something earlier in the course and those internal links aren't working, just realize that's what's happening. Anything that's linked to will still be there. Those are usually, linking from the overview to a particular activity or from an activity to a reading. So the materials will all be there. If the link doesn't work, just find the material and go directly to it. But I don't know, honestly, if I'm going to have the time to go back and rebuild everything from week 1. But I did try to get at least the last few weeks, so it's covering the more recent things that we might still be accessing. So I just wanted to make you aware of that issue. We weren't aware that was going to be the case, and I've kind of discovered it on my own, and a couple students did get in touch with me and say, hey, did you know this link doesn't work anymore? So I apologize for that, but going forward, everything should be good because I'm building everything from scratch from here on out. So, all right, so that's really it for tonight. Does anybody, does either group 2 or group 3 want to have an additional little meeting right now? I can throw you into a breakout room, or if only one of the groups wants to stay, I guess you can stay right here in the main room. But that's entirely up to you. If you want to take a moment now to debrief the alpha testing, or if you want to take care of that another time, that's fine by me too. So, Alyssa and Judith, you guys are basically set because you don't have anyone else to talk to right now. So the two of you, if you want to sign out, that's fine. And group 2 or 3, do you guys either group want to stay, or are you good for the night?
Do you guys want to stay for just a few minutes to debrief? Just like 5 minutes or so. You guys good with that?
Yep, that works.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's which group is that? Group 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Wayne, Courtney, Christy.
Yeah. So group 3, do you guys want to do as well, or are you guys set for the night?
Yeah, I think we're gonna do a few minutes as well.
Okay.
We're all here.
So then I'll do it through breakout rooms again, so you can go to your corners. So I'll just let me get those set up, and you don't have to come back in and check in with me. Just whenever you're done, just log out of WebEx, and that will take care of the evening. And I'll stay here as long as I see anybody is still online. But feel free to stay as long as you need to go over whatever you need to.
I actually have a question for you. So once the groups break out,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So give me a moment here to get these rooms set up. Let's see. I want to. All right. So I need Wayne, Courtney, and Christy in 1. Wayne in 2, Courtney, and Christy in 2. Okay, and then Eric Schko and April. And Alyssa. All right. The room numbers are flipped, but it doesn't really matter. So. You guys should be headed now to your own rooms, and I will see everybody, well, whenever I see you next. So, all right, thank you, and here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I also had a question, Professor, but it's for the other class. So, Judith, if you want to go first, I can hang out.
Well, my question was just about the